right. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm your host, Samantha Studebaker Carl, broadcasting to you from beautiful Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm here with my good friends Dan and Bill, and today we are continuing our discussion of the book Leonardo and Gabriel by Tim Tigner. And we are on the chapter entitled Jeffrey. Um, Last couple of weeks, we've been talking about the previous chapter, which discussed how Leonardo and Leonardo is trying to create the portrait of the Last Supper, and he's stuck on trying to get the features of Judas and the features of Jesus. And so he's been having this conversation in his dreams with the archangel Gabriel. And in the last chapter, they were talking about, well, let's define God, and let's start with his abilities. And so they had come up with omnipotence, omniscience, and omnipresence. And so we've been talking about those abilities for the past couple of weeks, because there's a lot to talk about when it comes to those things. And but this week we're just kind of going forward with the book, and in this chapter. Oh wait, before we get going, sorry guys. I was going to give you an opportunity to introduce yourselves, and I just got caught up. So jump out and say who you are, and then we can start into the discussion. Sorry, I'm having a moment here.
All right, well, I'm Bill Maybauer up out of Olympia, Washington, and listening in on this thing. Dan had invited me some time ago, and I jump in when I can, and I'm enjoying just the group and talking in. So I'll listen to you guys. Thank you for inviting me.
Dan Sisek in Las Vegas, Nevada, and been a part of this group for quite some time, about 6 years or so, I think, that we've been going on. Love our community and looking forward to having more people come and join us and join in our discussion. So get ready. I'm getting ready to jump in and go over what we have for today.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad to have you, Bill and Dan. And yeah, we've been doing this for quite a while now. I think I started it back in the March of 2013 or 2012, 2013, something like that. So yeah, it's been quite a few years that we've been doing this, and I don't know, what is this? Maybe the 10th book or something? I don't know, quite a few, maybe more than that. I'm not even sure, but yeah, we've been having a good time with it. Just so if you're out there and you're wanting to participate in a great book study with some awesome, amazing people, then you can find the links below this video here on YouTube, or wherever you find the video. You'll end up on YouTube, I think, and you just click the link to join our community over on Facebook, which is Mindset Mastery Collective, or there'll be a link down. I think it's pretty much just jump into our Facebook group, and then you can message me or Dan or Bill, whoever, and say you want to participate, or you'll find the links in there. So jump in there, shoot us a message, and you can jump on the conversations. So let's see. The chapter is entitled Jeffrey, and in this chapter, Leonardo has been woken up very aggressively by Jeffrey. He's the prior or the monk. What is he? I think he's like the monk at the church or something like that. And but anyway, he's kind of caught up in what he thinks Leonardo should be doing, which is just straight out painting. And instead, of course, Leonardo being the artist, he needs inspiration, and so he's been kind of meditating and or falling asleep and dreaming and trying to come up with the face of Judas and the face of Jesus, and because he's been stuck on it. And so anyway, so Jeffrey smacks him in the ear when he's laying on the scaffolding, and Leonardo is like, "What the what?" Wakes up, and instead of getting in a big argument with him, though, he just jumps down off the scaffolding and walks out the building calmly and gets on his horse and just rides off. And I thought that was kind of interesting. He says, because Jeffrey's like, "Did you really fall asleep on the job yet again, even after the Duke made his wishes clear?" And of course, the Duke has said, "Hey, we need to have this done by this certain date because we have this bigwig coming to visit us, and we want to have this painting done." And of course, those aren't his words, obviously, but that's basically what it boils down to. And so then this Prior, Jeffrey, keeps getting on his case because he's not getting it done as fast as Jeffrey thinks he should. And so anyway, he goes on and so in Leonardo's mind, he's just like, Jeffrey had just dealt a setback to the cause because he had woke him up in the midst of his meditation. And Leonardo, he's like, I can't begin to explain these means or methods to the short-sighted monk. So rather than fight to gain ground on infertile land, he just ignored his antagonist and then jumped down and went out the building. But I thought that was kind of an interesting thought right there. Is that he's like, I'm not going to try and explain what I'm doing or my methods for accomplishing something that you're not going to understand anyway. And he's just going to ignore him. Whereas I think a lot of times what happens with us in life is that somebody will antagonize us, and then we will get in this big argument with them trying to explain ourselves and our methods or defend ourselves and our way of doing things. And so I thought that was kind of like just a good little lesson that Leonardo is demonstrating, is that you don't have to get into an argument with somebody just because they don't agree with what you're doing. You can just kind of walk away or turn the other cheek, if you will. What do you guys think?
I was going to say, yeah, sometimes I think it can be helpful to do that, and I've done that myself a few times. Just kind of within me internally gone, just kind of said, you know what, I'm just gonna do my own thing and sort through it in my own head and work my way through, and then come back around, and if the opportunity provides itself, I'll try to explain them or something. But I think, you know, um, but then I also look at it at the other side of it, and a lot of times that might just cause an even bigger, you know, confrontation, because then they're like, "What?" Yeah, and where they might come over and get in front of you and like get in your face and like, "Why are you ignoring me? Why are you, come back here, come, So I think there's that dual side to it, that it can, you know, sometimes backfire on you too. In this case, um, it really didn't. He just calmly, got down, with determination to get out of there. And as he puts it, in the courtyard, Leonardo calmly mounted Euclid, which I'm assuming is his horse, kicked his heels, and rode for the ghetto favored by gamblers and prostitutes. So, and in the next part, he said he would find his Judas, or rather the devious disciples' features. And and in that's where he said, okay, well, he kind of interrupted, but I'm still gonna somehow go get the inspiration I need somehow, somewhere, some way. So he didn't kind of really let it get to be a sidetrack. He just went through another means of getting his inspiration, which I think sometimes we all need to do that. We just have to find that other course for where we can clear our minds or let our minds wander or go over the facts. Me, a lot of times I'll take those times to review everything in my head, think about it, and then be able to come back and process it and maybe handle the situation better and in a more calm way and in a better way of explaining it. So that's how I can to that part.
My thought is more in real life with my wife and family and stuff, and when they start telling me things or whatever, I got to realize, is this a good time for a fight or not? Is it worth it? You just got to walk away, and sometimes it's just best to walk away and not say anything. A lot of times she'll say, if you can't say anything good, don't say anything at all, and I try to follow that a whole lot. So working on how you interact with people it's many times best just not to say anything and go away, and it's not that big a deal anyhow. It'll all pass over, and just learn something from it. And that's about all I've got to say. But that's my real life.
That's a good point. And Dan, you kind of reminded me also of what you were just saying, Bill. Is when it comes to our family, we tend to be more aggressive with our opinions, I guess you could say, and maybe that's more of a woman thing. I don't know. I've known some men that are the same way, but I admit it. I've done that where I've just had a very strong opinion about something, and Chris doesn't necessarily agree with me, and I just feel compelled by some unknown force to convince him against his will. Or, and but the good thing is he's just like he understands that's how I am, and like what you were saying, Billy, he doesn't try and pick a fight with me over it. He just sits there and he doesn't ignore me necessarily, but sometimes he's just listens and then goes in the other room. So I get it, but yeah, and I don't think it's because I'm like Jeffrey, but you never know. Who knows? We don't know how we are. But let's see. Then what happens? So he's riding along, and he hears this cry from up above, and it's his friend Nikolai. Is that what his name is? Let's see. Niccolo Machiavelli. So he's standing up in a balcony, and he's like, "Hey, come join me for some wine." And even though Leonardo wants to, finish his task, he really enjoys his interactions with Niccolo, because Niccolo is like an intellectual on his own level, and he also is not afraid to talk about this discussion that they've been having about kind of redefining, if you will, or getting down to the brass tacks definition of what God is or who God is. And because Leonardo has been struggling with that, he's like, I just don't know about this, white bearded guy that everybody talks about, and so he's trying to come up with these features of a God that he's not entirely sure about. And so when he's having these discussions with Gabriel, the archangel, in his mind, and he's having the discussions also with Niccolo, it helps him to work through, and he's trying to figure out, what God should look like, or Jesus should look like. And so anyway, he takes up with Niccolo, and let's see. And one of the things that they were discussing is so Niccolo, apparently he normally stays at this one particular place, and he can't stay there because the owner of the place has rented his normal room to a new bride and groom for a short period of time. And so this is only significant because Niccolo is like, well, I still take my meals there because I don't want her to think that I'm offended by the fact that she's leasing my regular room to somebody else for this little event, when I want to keep a good relationship with her or him or whoever it is. And so Leonardo is he says, let's see, he says, the stream of psychological insights that sprang from Machiavelli never ceased to amuse or astound Leonardo. He says, do you ever act without strategic intent? And Nicholas says it's wise to anticipate that one's every action will be interpreted by an insecure mind. And he found that very insightful. That's just interpreted by an insecure mind, and so of course then he's relating back to Jeffrey, thinking about Jeffrey, and he obviously has insecurities, and so it's interesting. I mean, if we think about all of our interactions with people, how many times do we act in such a way that it's because we are, I don't know necessarily if fear is the right word, or if courtesy, or I don't know. I mean, I think that a lot of times just cultural niceties are because of just acting in a way that you think you're supposed to behave because of either A, the way people might think about you, or B, uh, I don't know, maybe the idea. I'm not sure. What do you guys think?
I was gonna say I think it's a mixture of it all, kinda, because we want to try and remain civil, I guess, so to speak, and be courteous, but at the same point, we want to also say what we want to say. But I do agree with you about that point about an insecure mind, because I think that when it comes down to it on some things, and I think that plays into Gabriel's things, he's very secure in painting and stuff, but right now he's a little insecure about these two people that he has to paint. So in that, I think how we interact and stuff, I think sometimes we are a little insecure and we're trying to find the things that will help, for lack of a better way of saying it, I guess maybe build us up or uh, edify us or make us feel more positive about what we're saying or what we're doing or what we're, dealing with. And so I think this is just a mishmash and mixture of everything that, you know, and I think that's why we have to give and take between, us and other people when we do things, it's kind of trying to find that calm and middle ground.
And I don't really have anything much else to say uh, about our insecurities. Yeah, when you're feeling insecure, then you start issuing discussions, and sometimes you get off track, and you many times may not even know what you're talking about. So at least at least you think you know, but sometimes you're really off track. So uh, again, best time to not say anything. If you're feeling insecure about this whole thing and don't know it front and back, then might as well just let it go.
And I think of it a little differently. Sorry, Samantha. I beat you to the punch. Sorry. I think it's a way of how we can learn and grow and understand things too. Because in it, we might point of view or we might learn something that can open our own eyes and open us to, like, oh, I never looked at it from that angle, or I never approached it that way, and therefore we can gain something out of it. Now, sometimes it might come back and bite us on the proverbial ass the other way too, and might not be what we wanted, or it might not be the most best thing to help us, either. There's always that flip side too, because somebody else could come back at us, and it might be because of the things they're going through, the things they're dealing with too. But I think sometimes if you take the time and process and go through everything and take it for what it is, and don't overread things, and that's my problem. I overread things into things sometimes. Um, you can maybe come up with something that can better help you with what you're dealing with, or give you insights on something. So there again, I think sometimes you know you don't learn or grow or get better perspectives if you don't put it out there either. So that's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this group right here. I mean, all of the conversations that we've had over the years, if we weren't allowing ourselves to step outside of what we think we know and allow for other people's thoughts in and to absorb those and then have just deep discussions about stuff, we wouldn't be where we are in our book study right now. I mean, this book alone, we've touched on a lot of different things are typically conversations that can be really touchy between people because it's related, and it's related to the definition of God. And to be able to have a conversation like that, we can't have people that are insecure in themselves. I'm not saying we can't have them, but I think that we can't sit here and be as careful about the way that we speak with the fear of thinking that the other people involved in the conversation are I don't even know what the right word is to use. But we wouldn't be able to have these conversations if we weren't all open to having them. Because if we had somebody that was involved that was not open to having the conversation, then we would just end up in an argument. I don't think that's a good idea, because we all have different ideas, right? But I think that, like, when we switched our kind of discussion earlier on, a number of books ago, we decided we were going to study the Tao Te Ching, and that made some folks very uncomfortable because they didn't want to step outside of their own beliefs in order to learn something that might make them uncomfortable. And so we lost people in our discussion, and that was really disappointing because we ended up not having any kind of we didn't have conversations. I felt like we didn't have conversations that were trying to tell people they were wrong. It wasn't about that at all. It was just a discussion of opening our minds to other possibilities or other interpretations of just spirituality in general. And I feel like that's what this is doing as well. And so I don't feel like we're really tiptoeing around the subject. Like sometimes you have to when you you want to have conversations with my sister. She is very secure in her beliefs and I'm okay with that. That's where she needs to be in her life, and I realize that I can't have these kinds of conversations with her because it upsets her too much. And so it's just that's just kind of the way that it is. But and I think that if Leonardo tried to have this conversation with Jeffrey about him trying to figure out what God's supposed to look like, Jeffrey would just be like laying down the law. This is what he looks like. This is how he is. This is blah, 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 there's no to interpretation. This is the facts, And go ahead, Dan. Did you say that? You're unmuted.
Well, no, I was just gonna say you were speaking about some illusions of people when we did Wayne Dyer's The Tao Te Ching, which I was one of those people that was having a hard time with it because of my beliefs. But I'll admit I was a little eerie of getting into it. But as I went through it, I gained a lot of valuable things and a lot of insight into even some of my own thoughts. But it didn't hurt my beliefs. In fact, it kind of helped augment and them grow and solidify some things about it, while taking some of what he said and realizing that it didn't hurt what I was, what I was brought up with, what I learned, or what I've come to grow and believe. And I think that's the other thing. So many people are so like this, they're not willing to entertain anything if it's outside of what. And I think partly is because maybe to me, they're not. How do I say this? And I don't want to think, say that anybody's not strong in their faith, but in my eyes, I was like, I felt secure enough in my own beliefs and stuff to be able to put myself there and look at it, whereas maybe some other people may not have that ability to do that. And I'm not trying to say, that there's anything wrong with that, or that anybody, should be looked down on or feeling that way, because they're not. And it's just all a matter of choices and decisions, and we have to make those choices for ourselves. So, I like that you brought that out about that.
I guess the only time you're really learning is when you're listening, because if you're talking, you're not learning anything. You're just and you help other people understand what you're thinking, but that's all you're doing, letting other people know. And again, you go back to one mouth and two ears. You need to listen twice as much as you talk. So whatever, however you want to interpret that's really the only time you're learning is when you're listening to reading or listening to what other people have to say. It may be different than what you were, but it then can create some dynamics in what you were believing, and you may change your thoughts slightly. Who knows? But that's the only way we all learn, is by listening and hearing what other people have to say.
I have another thought on the insecure minds discussion. So I've been reading another book by Marianne Williamson. It's called A Return to Love. And in that book, she is kind of her expression, I'm only at the very beginning, but basically the reason she wrote the book is because she had studied A Course in Miracles over a period of number of years. And her book is kind of a accumulation of knowledge that she's gained and insights that she's learned, and her what's the word I'm looking for? And kind of layman's terms for the Course in Miracles. It's kind of like laid it out. This is what it's trying to teach you, and this is an interpretation of what it's trying to teach you. And so, anyway, one of the things that she talks about in there is that she defines God as love. God is love. Love is God. And anything other than love is not God. It's an illusion. So, and then she's discussing everything that isn't love is fear. And so it's kind of like love and fear are the opposites of one another. And so then she is discussing this let's see, she says, okay, so then along the lines of the insecure thing, I was just kind of like saying, so if we're, say, playing into the insecurities of other people, their fears necessarily, is then wouldn't we be kind of adding to the illusion of? So if he's sitting here and he's trying to come up with this definition of God, and he can't discuss it with Jeffrey because Jeffrey is, cut off to it. But if he also plays into that, like by giving into this, okay, well, I can't even talk to him about it, isn't he playing into that same illusion? I don't know. Am I using it? I don't know if I'm saying it right, if you will. So, am I making any sense? Sometimes I feel like I'm just like talking in circles. If I'm not quite getting it to the point, but if we were to say
I
that,
think you're getting the idea.
yeah, we were to say that, maybe I'll come back around to that. I'm not sure if I'm fully forming my whole thought process on there. I was just like looking back on I had a full thought on it when I wrote this down, and now I'm like, I don't know what I'm talking about, or not what I'm talking about, but can't remember exactly the full train of thought. So we'll just get that part now. Okay. Yeah, jump out one. Maybe I have other thoughts.
I think what you're trying to allude to is that by not entertaining or talking with Jeffrey, he's not giving Jeffrey the chance to understand his process. So then that way, Jeffrey can then better maybe explain to those others, that he's so worried about, and so in a way in fear of himself because of the fact that there are people that are important to him. But if he understood the process a little bit, and being a person of the church, let's say, based there because he's function that does the sermons there, maybe he might have an understanding of the fact that he was visited and that he's trying to work out his own don't want to say insecure about God, but own issues, and it might help broaden the discussion then too, and he might gain some things from the monk, which, I think also, like you said, the monk might very well be, no, it's like this is how it's always been, this is, but, again, that insecure, that fear, that thing, so he's not willing to even broach that. He'd rather go talk, go down to places as he's looking for that inspiration, you know, for what he's looking for the deviousness and the, person that can do the ultimate, betrayal that's ever been heard of, and then the attributes for God that he's looking for somewhere in whatever he's looking for, and then he has his friend Machiavelli, can't remember, Niccolo, who you know does tend to be on his level and tend to understand, and while he may believe that he's been, himself, that Gabriel or Leonardo Gabriel exists or not, he's willing to at least meet him on that level and play that person to ask those questions that maybe he needs asking, so to help further him along on that. And so maybe that's where he's more receptive with them rather than with the monk.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think my kind of thought process on on why this kind of correlated with Marianne Williamson's book was because we were talking about trying to define God, and then her interpretation of the book, of Course in Miracles, and how she was saying that basically God is love and love is God, and so therefore anything that isn't love or isn't acting in the mode of love isn't is she calls it an illusion, and that we are all kind of living in this illusion. And of course, when we were talking in a previous one, we were talking about the veil between us and God, and that in our human existence, and in this human existence, so many things are based in fear. So many of our actions, so many of the things that are going on in the world are all reactions to fear. They're fear of. Sorry, I heard a bang. Where's my dog? He's right there. That didn't sound like a knock. Oh well. Anyway, so a lot of the things that are happening in the world are a lot of things that we do, whether we're reacting to, um, well, the whole political landscape, it's all fear based, and war is fear based, and um, just cultural differences, it's all fear based, and so it seems like in our human existence, so much is a reaction to something we're afraid is going to happen. We're afraid of the repercussions from something. We're afraid of how someone is going to, see us. Or, I mean, if we pretty much everything that we look at in terms of, well, even religion, it's a lot of it is fear based. We're afraid we're going to end up going to hell, and that's like a big thing. At least, and that's what I was taught: is that you act this way, you do this, you follow these rules, etc., etc., etc. Because if you don't, you're going to go to hell. You're going to burn in this fiery hell. And so, I feel like if we're trying to go back to be more connected with God, then we have to be the other way around, right? We have to be more loving, and if we are more loving and we act in a loving way, and I'll give you an example. I've got this person in my life who who is an insecure mind, if you will, is insecure in themselves and struggles a lot, and because of this person, it causes a lot of turmoil in relationships, and so it's kind of a thing where you feel like you got to tiptoe around them, and not say certain things, not act certain ways, all that. Well, isn't that's all fear based, right? And so, a afraid of how the person's going to react, afraid of the way the person's going to see, afraid of this, afraid of that. And yet maybe the answer is not to play into that person, into the illusion that that person is going to react in this way or another, is instead to just assume love and assume and just act in a loving way versus a fearful way, a fear of reaction or whatever. And maybe that's the key. I don't know. But I mean, then on the other side, I know I'm all over the place, guys. I apologize for this. But on the other side of it is that, we are living in the human existence in which most everyone reacts and does everything because of fear. And how can we only do everything with a intention of love when so many things that we have to do? We have to go to a job every day, because if we don't, we're, going to lose our house, I mean, of course, that's all fear things, right? But I mean, how would the universe look if we were to just start only making decisions based on love and not based on fear? And, is that even possible with the whole rest of the world acting in the opposite way? I think about that sometimes, and how many of my decisions every day are based at some level of fear. And it's not like, oh my God, I feel like the world's going to crash on top of me and I'm going to be dead. But it's, how much of the time am I sitting here going, okay, I need to do this, I should do that, I ought to do this because, and here's all the reasons why this whole list of stuff is all I need to do. How much of that list is based in some fear of something happening or not happening, or I don't know. That was just something that this particular section kind of brought up with me in combination with this other book I'm reading.
But that brings out another good point, and I'm going to jump back because of, like you're talking about, she was pointing out that based on her going through this class or whatever she went through, and she's now interpreting it and making it easier for her. But maybe that's similar along the same lines of what Leonardo was going, as he was trying to encapsulate the essence of God. And so maybe, maybe that's part of what he was trying to, that loving, caring, God, as opposed to Judas being this very, I don't want to say necessarily evil. I think he just got tempted away and made something else, more important than, when he betrayed Jesus. But all that, um, so that's the two sides that you're talking about right there. In essence, the love, trying to really capture true ultimate love, I think, in a way, and then true ultimate fear in a sense of the way because of how Judas did what he did. So in that, and I think I can see the construct there of what he was trying and how to genuinely and honestly depict that without any of his own personal thoughts or ideas getting in the middle of it, but without any influence from the rest of the world. And like even in the book where when he was talking with Machiavelli, um, he talked to him about him flicking his ear, and then he said he really did. But let's not waste words on him. What do you think of Gabriel's latest revelations? Leonardo goes, I like his blank slate approach. If you want a revolutionary new construction, it's best not to build on an ancient foundation. Being more like what Prior Goiffre would tell him, probably, no, this is where you've been. This is back to what you were talking about. So he's trying to get that true, real, you know, genuine rendition that everybody can look at and see and appreciate and get, that will for lack of a better way of saying, work for them when they look upon that painting. So that's, I don't think I'd want to be tasked with that and trying to, because I have my own thoughts and views, and I'd probably be a link going on that way. So I think having gone through this book a little bit, it's like, okay, I get a better understanding of, what he might have gone through and what he, and I don't think I want to go through that. So that's where I'm coming from based on what you were saying, and I think what you're saying does play into what we're talking about here.
I was thinking also when you were speaking, Dan, since we've been trying to kind of talk about God and where these ideas of his, of course, these previous ones that were his, what they call them, abilities or characteristics, abilities, his defining abilities being omnipotence, omnipresence, and omniscience. And then if we're looking at it, because we've touched on a lot of different aspects of that and what does that actually mean, and particularly when it comes to the fact that there's billions of people on this planet, everybody has their own idea of what God is, and everybody has this kind of idea that God is on their side. And I mean, wars have been fought over it, and both sides think God is on their side, right? And every religion thinks God is their religion is the religion, and yet we've been kind of discovering in all of our books, well, not all of them, but in a lot of our book discussions, and then this one in particular is when we like really dig down into what God is or is not or whatever. It's just these, they're more passive qualities, if you will, that he's not so much, doesn't seem to be necessarily always active in some kind of a way. It seems that he's more passive, like love, if you will. And if because he's not always going to interfere with what's going on in our lives. And a lot of the time we have these horrific experiences in our life and we're like, God, why? And yet we also are like, God is loving and he is there for us. But is that the thing? Is that yes, he's all these things, but yet he's a passive, um, he's there for us. He's like the shoulder to cry on. He's not the one that makes the stuff happen necessarily. He is just our confidant. He is um, he's the one that connects us all together. He's the thing that we are all a part of. And yet at the same time, because there's a billions of us, he can't be on one person's side and not on someone else's side if he is ultimately omnipresent and all powerful and and all these things. He can't be on just one person's side or just one culture's side, right? I mean, if we truly believe that he is everything and he is love, I mean, we know that, right? Or I don't know, what do we know? That's kind of the thing, though. But it just kind of makes me wonder, okay, maybe we have it all wrong, is that he's not out there making things happen. It's just the things are happening and he's there for us to call upon, to ease our mind, to ease our suffering, to ease our frustrations and difficulties in life. Is that instead of being the cause of all, is that he is the shoulder to cry on, if you will. I don't know. It's just something that just kind of came to me as a thought when just everything that we've been talking about.
And something that I got Samantha, as I was listening to you, you were saying he and it, and how many times have we thought about God in man's own image? as opposed to the other way around, because it's such a hard concept. We've got to put some stuff around it to try to be able to grasp it. I sometimes think of, whatever you think about Star Wars, it's the Force. How that doesn't really have any boundaries, but it's there. And it's just so hard to try to figure out all of this stuff. And what was life like before time? Why was there God? Why was there a need for God? Was there a God? But something happened, and all of the rules and laws, physical laws and stuff, gravity, is that God made, or how did that ever happen? There must have been some planner, if you want to call, or architect. Is that God or is it not? I don't know, but some things I'm just kind of rattling on, just various thoughts that I keep having that try to figure out what God is, and will we ever know? I don't know. I sure can't remember him before I was born. So, what will happen, and it's just a concept that we just got to live with and do our best. And is that enough? Well, that's all we can do is do our best.
And I'll add on to a little bit of what you both were saying, because like you were saying, and Bill pointed it out, and I wasn't really paying attention, but now as I think back, you were saying he, it, or whatever, but I'll go back to my own, based on what I've grown up and what I've read and what I've read in the Bible and stuff. And in the very first, when he's talking about creating and everything and creation and stuff, and he talks about creating humans, he said, and it's stated in the Bible, let us make man in our own image. So he's talking plural there, and we've been taught, or I've been taught, it's God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. But in a book I read talking called The Shack, and I love that book. It's a great book, and it gave me new insights in how to approach my thoughts and looking at God. I look at God as, okay, if it's truly real what he says, that he created us in his image and he created man and woman, he should have all those characteristics of man and woman. So encapsulated within that whole spirit. And to me, that's where, so rather than saying he or it, I'm thinking more kind of like them, but all as one spirit encapsulated together, where man manifests each one of those characteristics in male and female, and those type of things that bring out those two sides, where it's meant that when men and women get married, they mesh together, kind of like God meshes together in that whole spirit of kind of becoming one. They kind of and now as I look back and thinking about in some cases where you have a couple that was married for so many years, and as they grow old, and then maybe one spouse dies, and in some cases not long after, maybe within 6 months or so, the other spouse dies because of their loss and their sense of loss. So to me, in that sense, and that's how I've been kind of looking at it, and how I try to go and fit that. But going back to another statement you made about God is love, and are we? But if you say God is that shoulder that we're used to cry on, I think you take out omnipotent, all powerful, because if you look at him that way, then and that things are happening, then you take out his all powerful part, I think, and that he's able to like a friend being a shoulder, they can't change the circumstances or stuff. I think in my mind there's that ability. Now, does it always happen? No. For I think for reasons to help me grow and help me work towards being the person I'm working towards being. But but that's where I'm looking at things. I'm not saying you're right or wrong, because I don't know the answers either. I'm still trying to figure this out too, just like you. And these discussions help me go, oh, well, let me look at it from that point of this viewpoint, or oh, well, I never thought of it that way. So it gives me things to think about now. So, but that's why I'm kind of seeing that. I do believe he is love, and the best form of love that encapsulates everything about love that we all strive for. So, and I agree with you to that part, but I think he's more than just a shoulder to cry on, though, too.
Yeah, I agree with you, and that's that he's more than that. Obviously, yeah. I mean, and particularly when we try and we give him all these defining qualities of you know, I mean, everything so far, all of the omnipotence, omnipresence, omnipotent, because one is, of course, he's everywhere. One is he's all powerful. What was the other? All knowing, and and I like how you're kind of bringing up the discussion of God created in His image, and let us create. And because I had another thought is when he's talking about there's a section in here, he's like they're talking about the characteristics, and Niccolo gave Leonardo a funny look, and he says, "We're talking as though it was really a heavenly messenger visiting your dreams rather than your unfettered subconscious mind." And then Leonardo says, "I know, I've considered that too. Perhaps there's really no difference, certainly not a practical one." And the difference that he's talking about, and the thing that he's considered, is this subconscious aspect of himself being um, the messenger, or being his connection with, or maybe God itself. And and I think a lot when I'm like in my own head and having thoughts. A lot of times I feel like I'm having a conversation with someone, and when I am going through my day and making decisions, a lot of times in the back of my mind, I'm going, let's go do this, or I think we should do that. And I don't know why. Why am I feeling like I'm us? I'm an us, not an I. Do you ever feel that way? Like when you're, I don't, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the only one. I don't know. It's an odd feeling. But so if we look at it also like that, maybe that us is me and God having a conversation. I don't know. I mean, Catherine, she has conversation with all kinds of spiritual beings, so I'm sure she's got a us in her mind. But then the other aspect is, so okay, so God has, he's in the Bible says, let's create man in our own image. But yet at the same time, we've discussed also the fact that he's omnipresent, which he's everywhere, and omnipotent and all knowing. And um, and what we were taught, and this force, like Bill, you suggested there was talk about that, as well as him being a force versus a it. And um and so then, if we're looking at all these aspects of, he can't be all knowing if he only sees from human perspective, obviously, because we are limited in what we can and can't see, um, just because of our physical abilities. We only have our five senses, and possibly a sixth sense. And uh, but there are other things that we've created in this world that can see things beyond what we can see, things that can see in the dark, and things that can see radio waves and ultraviolet light and all of these different things. So if God can do all of that, then how can we also be necessarily in his image unless we are all of that too? And we're just, the human body is the veil to that connection with God, and we're more than just this human body. So that kind of brings that into the question aspect of it too. If we are in his image, we are more than what we think we are. Um,
Well, I was going to jump out and say, remember that we only use about 1% of our brain's abilities. So maybe part of, Leonardo, Leonardo's capability is maybe he tapped into a little bit more of his abilities to have more, like Catherine too, you know, that ability to have more, for lack of a better way, direct interaction, so to speak, I guess, with, I'll say God, infinite intelligence, for me, I'll say God, to get some um, insight, and that might be where we get some of these great breakthroughs that we, the technological breakthroughs, maybe the medical breakthroughs that over history and time that have come about. That might be where some of that comes from. And in those times, somebody connected in a better way, uh, then, and I think it goes back to that fear side of us where we're afraid to know that side of it and to really dive in and to ponder that and to open ourselves to that too. I know I have done that at times, and other times I've been, very open. So I think it's, part of how we're constructed, I guess, so to speak.
Yeah, I kind of wonder that. I mean, I know we only use, percentage of our brain, and and of course we're only capable as humans of so many senses of sensing things, but yet, we do have these inspirations that come from somewhere, and maybe that is because we are more than what we think we are, and we just think we're this human body and that's all we are, but actually we're much more than that, and we just don't realize it because of this just separation of this physical experience. Because I mean, when we look at just a tiny little bit that I have learned about like quantum mechanics and quantum physics, is that there's so much more that we can't even interpret because we're just not capable of it. And so it's just it's interesting, this whole concept of possibly, where was it? I was saying that, when I was reading the other book, the Return to Love by Marianne Williamson, and her talking about a lot of all of this fear-based stuff is an illusion, and then we've had also the other discussions of we don't really even know what's going on. We may be living in some kind of simulation of some sort. We don't even know. I mean, who's to say? But we could go on about this all day. Bill, any final thoughts before we wrap up? And Dan, final thoughts? As we're well into past the top of the hour, but I don't know, we're kind of all over the place today. So just that's the way it goes, though. I mean, that's we've had some really interesting discussions on with this book, and it's been fun.
Okay, well, thanks a lot for everything, and I should be able to be on next week, I hope.
Cool.
That's the plan.
Awesome. All right, guys. Oh, do you want
Yeah,
to add, Dan?
yeah, I was just gonna say this has been an interesting discussion this week, and we did jump around, but like you say, we tend to do that. But that's what's nice about our group and our community, and when we get in here and talk, you know, we can say and say things in without fear of how we feel and stuff like that. And I appreciate that, and I appreciate everybody's points of view because it helps me grow and learn and look at things too. So with that, that's my little bit. And this week was interesting and fun talk.
Awesome, guys. Well, for those of you who are watching, if you'd like to jump in on this discussion, there'll be a link below the video where you can get into our Facebook group, and then just message us. Let us know you want to participate, and we'd be happy to have you. With that, guys, have a great, awesome, amazing week, and we'll see you next time on the Saturday Morning Mastermind. Bye for now.